Hello, and I hope all is well for you today. And in this population-based series, we will be discussing anything from articles to news reports, potential conspiracy theories, and assessing population data. So if that's something you're interested in, hopefully you will enjoy this dialogue. And in this episode, we will be talking about news article. I'm going to share 3 news reports and articles regarding the population growth of Africa. These reports are fairly recent and written from the years 2019 to 2020. Let's start with this article from U.S. News and World Report entitled Africa to Lead World in Population Growth. Africa's population growth jeopardizes efforts to fight poverty, while immigration is expected to fuel U.S. population growth. Written by Wilson Chapman on July 10, 2019. It states, Africa is expected to lead the world in population growth by the end of the century, according to an analysis published on Wednesday by the nonpartisan Pew Research Center. Lopez said, part of why Africa is projected to grow over the century is because, unlike many countries with aging populations and low fertility rates, many African countries have relatively young populations and high fertility rates. According to the UN report, the current fertility rate of sub-Saharan Africa is 4.6, the highest of any region. Pew's estimates state that by 2100, half of all worldwide births are expected to be in Africa. In addition, many of the countries in Africa are beginning to grow in terms of economic prosperity, which helps fuel population growth. Africa is projected to have a growing population while much of the rest of the world stagnates, so a lot of the growth of the world's future population is going to come from Africa. And that's really because of its youth. And its still relatively high fertility rates, Lopez said. As a result of the declining birth rate, the world population will begin to skew older. The world's median age will be 42 in 2100, up from 31 today. And the number of people over 80 will increase to 881 million. The UN report states that by 2050, 16% of the world will be 65 or older, and in certain regions such as North America and Europe, 1 in 4 people may fall in this demographic. Lopez said the aging of the world population will have varying effects on countries. For countries like Japan, which already has one of the oldest populations, these trends will present major challenges in caring for a growing elderly demographic. However, even in relatively younger countries like the U.S., the growing number of elderly raises concerns regarding Social Security and healthcare. The world is aging, and that brings a number of new challenges about how to address the health needs and financial needs of the elderly, Lopez said. For more information, I just read different excerpts. You can find the article from U.S. News and World Report entitled Africa to Lead World in Population Growth. This article by World Economic Forum entitled The Children's Continent, Keeping Up with Africa's Growth. Written January 13, 2020. The world's population is growing, but it is in Africa where this challenge is particularly acute. We know Africa as the place where human life began, a place with an ancient and noble history. But today, it is also a place that is becoming home to more children than any other place on Earth. Already, 77% of the population is below the age of 35. For many decades, the enormous populations of South America, Europe, and Asia have grown quickly. But today they have slowed, and the majority of their populations are adults. In India, the average age is 29. In China, it is even older at 37. But in Africa, the average age is 19 years old, and rapidly getting younger. The continent is growing so quickly that by halfway through this century, it will be home to 1 billion children. By 2050, 2 in every 5 children in the world will be born in Africa. For more information regarding this article, visit World Economic Forum and this article entitled "The Children's Continent Keeping Up with Africa's Growth." This article from Quartz entitled "Africa's Population Will Triple by the End of the Century Even as the Rest of the World Shrinks." It was published July 16, 2020. It states, "Every global region could see their populations decline by the end of the century, except Africa. The expected population contraction will be due to dropping fertility rates, with death rates being either at par with or faster than birth rates in several countries. The varying rates of contraction will be most extreme in countries like Thailand, Japan, and Spain, along with 20 others where declines could see their populations halved by 2100. But in sharp contrast, total population in Africa will triple in the same period. To be clear, a population boom in Africa has long been on the cards, with earlier estimates showing that more than half of global population growth by 2050 will occur in Africa. However, the Lancet's new findings cover a longer timeline and also corroborate earlier forecasts, which show that Nigeria, already Africa's most populous country, will drive the boom in Africa, with an expected population of 790.7 million by 2100. Given a 48% population decline expected in China, Nigeria will become the second biggest country globally by 2100, behind only India. Nigeria's growth spike will be replicated in other African countries, and we'll see the continent go from having only 2 countries with populations of over 100 million as of 2017 to 9 countries having over 100 million by 2100. Of the countries expected to have populations higher than 100 million by 2100, Niger and Chad will see largest percentage increases in the size of their populations. The Democratic Republic of Congo will also go from being Africa's 4th largest country by population to being its 2nd. The Lancet's findings also suggest that by 2100, up to 183 countries will have fertility rates lower than 2.1 births per woman, considered the minimum rate required for generational replacement of the population. The result will be a changed age structure, which will see more individuals older than 65. While several African countries will have lower fertility rates by 2100, the impending population growth will be due to its young population and the current high fertility rates across the region, with only 7 African countries, Cape Verde, Botswana, South Africa, Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, and Libya, having fertility rates lower than the global average of 2.37 births per woman. For more information on the article, visit Quartz and its article entitled "Africa's Population Will Triple by the End of the Century, Even as the Rest of the World Shrinks." Well, that is all we have for today's episode, and I hope you enjoyed this discussion, where we looked at the populations of a young and growing African continent. Thank you so much for listening, and stay tuned for more.